What's up, house groups? First and foremost, I want to say thank you to all of you who served at Reach Des Moines on Sunday. It was an incredible day, and it was a blast hanging out and eating pancakes afterwards. It was just amazing to go serve the city and live out this core cultural value we have at Revision that gifted people give to people. We believe God's given every single one of us gifts so that we can leverage our lives for the sake of the people around us, which is kind of a radically countercultural idea if you think about it. We live in the middle of a society that tells us that the talents and abilities and giftings we've been given are to be used for ourselves. My gifts are for me so that I can get success and I can get wealth and I can get comfort. But then we crack open the Bible and it continually pitches this idea that my gifts are for we and that your gifts are for we. In First Peter, Peter writes, look, you guys, the days are dark and time is short, so be faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Which sounds like a really weird thing to say, be faithful stewards of God's grace, but what he's saying is the gifts God has given you are a way of God giving grace to you and extending it into your life so you have meaning and you have purpose and you have abilities and you have the chance to make a difference and steward that well by giving your gifts away. And it's hard to do. It's easy to sit there in the inertia of our lives and look out at just the brokenness of our world and feel like I don't have the ability to make a difference. There's nothing inside of me that can change all of that. But a couple weeks ago, we looked at the story of Jonathan in 1 Samuel 13 and 14, where he thought those same exact thoughts and had every reason to believe they were true, except for he just had this conviction deep inside his soul that God wanted somebody to move and that if he just gave what he had, God would show up. And it's this incredible story of Jonathan, attacking an entire Philistine army with one sword and one other guy, and God just showing up in incredible ways, and the earth literally shaking as God helped Israel defeat the Philistines because Jonathan had the faith to move. And he had the faith to give everything that he had been given for the sake of his people and the sake of his nation. And I had three things that I mentioned that Sunday a couple weeks ago that I wanted us to see in this story, and I'm going to rehash them really quick. The first one is that difference makers see the same thing everybody else sees, but they refuse to do the same thing everybody else does. Jonathan saw the exact same situation. He saw an outmatched army that had no chance outside of God, but he believed God wanted something to be done in the world. He said, this isn't the way the world is supposed to be, and my heart is broken. God's tugging at it, and so I refuse to sit here in comfort. I refuse to be so worried about my own life that I take the gift of life and the gift of time that God's given me and I just spend it on me. I'm going to move. He refused to do what everybody else did, and it changed the world. And the second thing I think we see in his story is that doing something right matters more than doing nothing wrong. I mean, so much of our religious experience for a lot of us, especially those of us who grew up in the church, has been focused on sin avoidance. Like just try really hard not to do anything wrong. I want to try really hard not to sin. And don't get me wrong, that matters. It makes a difference in your life and everybody else's when you do less wrong. But that's not the finish line of the Christian life, just avoiding wrong. God gifted us with the ability to make a difference in the lives of the people around us. The world is too broken for us to sit there and do nothing wrong and do nothing. And it's so easy to look at our lives and be like, well, I don't want to get it wrong. It's a no until God says go. I'm not going to share Christ with my coworker. I'm not going to share my faith with them. I'm not going to invite my neighbor or my sister to church yet. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm not going to serve in kids ministry or join the setup team yet until God makes it very clear that's what he wants me to do, because what if I get it wrong? And trust me, if you do the wrong, right thing, God will get you rerouted. Your best intentions are not bigger than his sovereignty. We got to shift to this mindset that Jonathan had, which is I'm going to go until God says no. Not it's a no till God says go, but I'm going to go till God says no, because the world is not the way that it should be. And I got one chance, one life to make a difference. And so I'm not just going to sit here doing something right matters more than doing nothing wrong. And then the third thing we learned from Jonathan's story is if all you've got is your hands, your feet, and your God, you've got enough to change the world. It's easy sometimes to feel like we don't have the resources to live into the responsibilities God's laid out in front of us, but we don't need them. All Jonathan brought to the fight was his simple humanity, and God showed up in ways that were bigger and crazier than he possibly could have imagined. And I believe he'll do the same thing for us. And so I just want to encourage you guys to be faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. He has gifted you uniquely. He's placed you in a spot in this world with relationships to other people in this world that is absolutely unique to you, and all of us cannot do what you can do. And if you live into the cultural narrative that the gifts and abilities and talents you've been given are for you, for me, rather than we, you're going to waste your life. And you're going to get to the end and miss out on making the difference God placed you here to make. We cannot make more minutes, but we can make the most of the minutes we've been given. We have gifts. And if we give them away, I believe God will show up in ways that are beyond our wildest imagination, and he will use us. He will work in and through our lives to change the world.